Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Anime Night in the Dojo. Today's featured show, Fire Force, Season 3, Part 2.
Fire Force, Season 3, Episode 13, first episode of the second core. Welcome back to the dojo. I'm Ryu. That's Age. We're back for more Anime Night in the Dojo, and I got my allergies, so might see some eye stuff and sniffling, potentially. I'm going to try to keep it to a minimum like I always do, but it's like 79 degrees in California in the dead of winter, and everything's messed up, so the temperature fluctuations are murdering me, 80 during the day and like freaking 35 at night. I know it could be worse. It could be the other parts of the country where everybody's freezing and certain politicians are fleeing their states yet again, but that's a whole other discussion. We don't really do politics here, but anyway, as for Fire Force, we're back. This is the show that got my first channel canceled, even though I did get it back, for those of you who may be coming from the other channel. But we are now doing everything on this channel. We'll have our new intro video going up later this week, explaining how and why everything is going on. But if you check out the first video on this channel, it explains everything as to why we're doing timer reactions and stuff like that now. Copyright on YouTube has gotten ridiculous, so it's just not worth the aggravation. And ever since I started doing timer reactions, big surprise, I've gotten 0 copyright hits on any of my videos. Not even like the initial pass that it, like when it does the checks for anybody who's uploaded a video, it runs a check to see if there's copyrighted material. And I haven't even gotten the like, hey, you have copyrighted material, but it's cool, like it's okay to use it kind of thing. It's like not even once. So well, we're just not going to mess around with that kind of stuff anymore. So we're doing the timer reactions, which a lot of people do that now. And for the people that are still, I'll use the term getting away with it, because props to you guys if you know reactors that are getting away with still showing any of the episode at all, because at a certain point they're probably gonna get hit by it, you know what I mean? So
yeah, a lot of the bigger ones have moved to either doing timer reactions or sticking the reaction itself on their own sites.
Yeah,
like that's how freaking Blind Wave does it.
Right.
There are still a few outliers out there though, like Flaming Shark. He's like a veteran freaking reactor at this point. Like, he never made it huge, but he is still reasonably big. But he's been freaking reacting to stuff for like 12 years now.
Right.
Plus, and he freaking uploads entire episodes.
Which to me is maddening, because like there are a few times where I like kind of sat there and messed with the system, and I was like, all right, let me see. Obviously, I'm going to get hit for the full episode. So, I cut it by like 5 minutes, then by like a half. And then it was that sweet spot of like, for any of you who remember like back in the day, like 15, 20 years ago, when they people would upload like the entirety of a episode of anime, but it was in 3 8-minute segments. Usually that still was a thing where you could keep like, you could have like 8 minutes of footage of audio and video or less, and you could probably be safe. But hell, like even the stuff that we did with Fire Force, like since we don't like talk through the entire episode, because we don't do that. I mean, we have our reactions and stuff like that, but once again, I'll always state the fact that, for the people that watch stuff and talk through the whole episode, I question whether they really understand what's going on and took it all in. You know what I mean? So there are even some times where, like, when Age and I are talking about something that's happening in the show, I go back later and go and rewatch just that segment to like reconfirm or make sure like I heard what the characters were saying correctly. You know what I mean?
Like that's actually like one of the biggest complaints most people have with Blind Wave is they are a group reaction channel.
Yep.
And they do talk through most of the episode, and people don't really complain necessarily about them talking through the episode, but the fact that they forget shit all the time, constantly, because a combination of they're too busy talking through most of the episode to catch everything, and they watch like 12 shows a week. So they freaking just get mixed up between all of the different things they're trying to balance.
Right. And we've done 5, like when we were doing Peacemaker for our first live action show later last year. That was even 5 was just like, I need to, with names and remembering what's going on. It was even hard when we were like really like hyper focusing in, and like sometimes we'd barely say like 5 sentences a piece during like a reaction. So it's one of those things where a reaction is still a reaction even after the episode is over. It doesn't have to happen immediately. You know what I mean? So we'll talk about it a little bit more in the extended part of our reintroduction to the channel video that we're going to do. But it's always one of those things to me that I want to take it in and not have to rewatch it, immediately. I want to know the first time, and I'm very good at taking that kind of stuff in on the first try and not have to spend time rewatching something unless I really want to, or like really need to in certain cases, like the Has Been Hotel stuff when you're looking for specific things because there's so much stuff going on in the background of certain shows. But just
trying to spot the 8.
Yeah, trying to spot the 8, whatever. But it's for certain things, you have to look at it and go, that you kind of lose credibility when you start talking about something, and it's just like, you claim to have watched the show, but did you really? And like the most hilarious thing that I've had recently is the stuff going on in like we're going to be doing Jujutsu Kaisen this season as one of our shows that'll be coming out tomorrow, but one of the like early episodes with what happens with the Zenin clan, Japan ranked the episode like a 5.7 out of 10, right? And the rest of the world was like, the whole aura farming nonsense that's like, going on these days, and they had it at like a 9 point something. And like somebody who with objective assessment looked at the episode and went like, all you Westerners just watched like the 3-minute TikTok video of the fight scenes, right? That's the only thing you watched and paid attention to. And that's why I think that a lot of this kind of stuff is like people just watch back when I was younger, it was like, oh, you just read the cliff notes of the book. You know what I mean? And in this case, this is what it is. Like, you watch the TikTok highlights of the episode. You didn't watch the whole episode. You know what I mean? If you watched the whole episode, you'd have the answer to the questions that I'm asking you that aren't very hard. You know what I mean? You see a lot of posts and stuff going around online where it's just like, that didn't happen. It's like, yes, it did. Or this character is definitely a thing, or this is happening with this character. Did you miss that? So...
Yeah, no, I mentioned this last time you were commenting on that freaking whole thing with the rating and the TikTok watching. Is like, if fight scenes and aura farming were all it took to make a great show, then freaking Fate Unlimited Blade Works is probably the best show ever of all time still.
Right.
Because there really is not much that's came close to the sheer level of freaking ridiculous spectacle that anime went into.
Right. So either way, just some stuff that we want to talk about again. Hopefully I don't get hit by a random third-party company that's looking at still images, because when we do our discussion and review part of the video, I do show still images and stuff like that, but I haven't, again, gotten anything in the last couple months since we started this channel over here, so it should be fine.
I mean, yeah, you say that, but once again, like 80% of the stuff that they claimed was copyrighted material was us just talking.
Right, yeah, so it might happen again, and I'll just fight it again. But losing this channel wouldn't be as big of a deal as losing my other channel that had all my Twitch VODs on it, which I got back, and I'm going to be starting to download that on local. But finally got my big-ass 22 terabyte hard drive for Christmas, so yeah, that was the one thing that I asked for. That's like, if you're going to get me anything, just that. That's the only thing I need. Don't get me anything else. You know what I mean? And that's what people got me collectively. So I was like, hey, thank you. Appreciate it. This is the only thing I need right now. It's going to save my ass. So yeah, but either way, if it does happen again, it's that random third-party company again. I'll talk about it again in our year-end wrap-up thing, because we want to get to Fire Force here, but it was a stupid process, and in short, they would have had to come to California to fight me over it. Good luck with that. It wasn't the author, it wasn't like the studio in charge, it was some random third-party website that like hosts manga and anime. You know what I mean? And it's just, I looked into it, and it's just like, they have like like 150 employees, and they've been around for like 25 years, but it was the situation was stupid, but I'll talk about it more in our year in review and stuff thing if you guys want to see that when that comes out later this week. But as for Fire Force, last time we had, shit get really real with Shinra and him waking up several months later with blonde hair. Okay, I'm in for the madness. So, that should be fun. I can't wait to see how this wraps up. I know a lot of people are concerned that they might, since this is it, when this core ends in 13 episodes or whatever, 12 or 13 episodes, whatever it is, this is it. Fire Force is done. Okay? And people are hoping that they do Soul Eater perfect after that. But people are concerned with them not being able to get everything in that they need to.
Yeah, but from everything that they have said, this is supposed to be the last core for the last season. So we shouldn't be getting anything else after these episodes. However, they still have like 85, almost 90 chapters to get through.
Yeah.
So they're either going to have to skip or change shit or do another core.
Right.
Because in some way, shape, or form, something's going to need a change, because there's no way in hell they're going to not skip or change anything and get that many chapters into one core.
For reference, the average 12 to 13 episode core is about 40 to 45 to 50 chapters tops. If you're really squeaking stuff in, like one of the things that we recently did, Campfire Cooking, the 2 seasons, so 24 episodes, that encompassed about 80 chapters. And that was 24 episodes. So, you know what I mean? Just saying, it's not impossible, but I don't think you want to anger people with cutting stuff that probably shouldn't be cut, because man, they're probably going to really have to pack it in. So that's something we'll have to talk about as the season goes on. You know what I mean? We'll probably have to look into just the source material and be like, okay, here's where we are on the show. Have they cut anything at this point? Like, we'll check that at like the halfway point, like 6 episodes in, and we'll do like a check. So we'll just have to see what happens. But that is the major concern with this last core, is them not having enough time. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But Crunchyroll player is already resetting on me over here. You guys can't see it because of what I call the copyright blocker. But yes, so we're gonna roll into the reaction. So we'll see everybody over on Patreon if you want to see the timer reaction. And on the other side of the edit, if you're on YouTube, you will see the discussion. So if you want to check us out on Patreon, that's free membership, all that stuff over on Patreon. It's free. I'm not charging for anything right now, obviously. Probably won't, ever, unless people want, access to a private Discord or something in the future. So all that stuff's free. Just have a free Patreon membership. Check out the timer reactions over there. And over here on YouTube, subscribe, all that stuff. It's free, if you want to support us. So anyway, we're going to push some buttons and get going here. So here goes some. Well, alrighty then, there you guys have it. I thought it might be some weird thing with, I should have looked up her name between the reaction and right now, but he drew the lines and stuff. It's been a minute, but I remember pretty much everybody's name. But
I want to say it was Inka.
Yeah, Inka, I think. Yeah, that sounds right. we got to get back into names, because the last time we did Fire Force, once again, I had to deal with the fallout of getting my channel back, and it really that just really soured me on pretty much everything for a while there. But
yeah, it was Inka.
It was Inka, yeah, Inka. That, yeah, like I said, that sounded right. But to that end, we don't know what happened with her, because she went with him. That was the whole thing. It's like, you need to take me to the past. Okay, so I assume at some point we'll get what happened with her. But again, we'll start this off by saying, if they are truly on a clock, not in universe, not the in-universe clock that they're on, for the episode count to cover everything, this is a bad start. Or what it was and what they're doing to show the gravity of the situation, everything that happened with Shinra, all the stuff, that was totally fine. You know what I mean? You could feel the weight of the situation, how he felt about his, more than likely, his doppel taking over him while his mind was elsewhere, that kind of thing, and we'll get to that. But this would be fine if they were doing 2 chorus more. You know what I mean? But for this, there is no way that this was like more than a single chapter. You know what I mean? This had the feel of like one chapter. You know what I mean? Like chapter whatever, like 83, whatever. I know it's not chapter 83, but you know what I mean? It just feels like a single chapter that this covered. You know what I mean? Maybe 2. You know what I mean? Because the average manga, you know, whatever, depending on how much the author wants to put into a chapter, generally speaking, from what I've seen, is anywhere from bare minimum like 15 pages to 30 something pages. So all of this could have easily fit in 30 pages. You know what I mean? Could probably easily fit in like 20, depending on what was going on. So yeah, this doesn't bode well for that clock. So we're just gonna have to see what happens, obviously. I'll be as optimistic as possible, obviously, but still gotta be real about it. It's not a good start if it comes to that, and if they have to do 90 chapters. So yeah, we'll just have to see what happens with that. But we'll leave that on the back burner till about mid-season, and then when we hit episode 6, Age and I will like go to the source material and be like, okay, here's what just happened. Where is that in the source material? You know what I mean? So we've gone through 6 episodes. How much did they get through in 6 episodes? And what did they potentially leave out? And how much is left? You know what I mean? So we'll get to that, 6 weeks from now. So, sometime in March. But yeah, we'll just have to see. But hopefully they can do it justice, because once again, this is something I've talked about before. When it comes to the adaptation of an anime from any source material, for me, and I know how the industry is, it's a completely different discussion, but to me, if I was running a studio, all you have to do is paint in the lines. You have everything you need. It's cool if you talked with the author, like what Kubo's doing with, it's like, okay, this is something I couldn't do in the source material, so let's add this. Totally fine. Things that, you run by the author, like, hey, what about adding a scene like, like how they did the anime original stuff for like Froppy's story in MHA? Totally fine. That kind of stuff. But leaving stuff out is the worst thing you can do. And it's maddening that it happens so often. It's like, so I don't get it. Like, then just do another season. You know what I mean? Not only would you not be pressured by the fan base for leaving stuff out, but then you'd be able to potentially do more with additions and stuff like that. So bare minimum to me is just don't leave anything out. That's like the easiest thing. And like, to me, it's like, I always like make the like example of like when the Astros cheated to win all their games in MLB, and the only punishment that needed to happen was them stripping the World Series title and vacating that title. They never did it. The easiest, simplest thing, and you look at leadership from anything, from sports to whatever it is, and you look at some of this stuff and it's just like, why are your rules so convoluted and complicated? And then when you have something as easy as, keep in mind, you guys, in pro sports, cheating to win is not worse than betting on the game, even if you have nothing to do with it. You could be a baseball player and bet on football or whatever, or in the case of, say, the most famous one, Pete Rose, betting on baseball. And, he never bet on his team, that from everything that's come out. You know what I mean? So if you say play for the Dodgers and you're over there and you like bet on like the Yankees to win their game, if you're not like actively rigging the games with the Yankees players and you're just like a guy saying, yeah, I think the Yankees are going to win tonight, and you put like $100 on it as a player, that's more frowned upon than cheating to win. Mind blowing to me. So in the case of anime, leaving stuff out is on the same table for me, where it's like, it's one thing if you're creating something completely original and there is no source material. The anime is the source material. That's the only thing you're doing. Then that's something completely different. But when you have, in this case, the entire blueprint for what you need to do and what you need to put into your show, why are you leaving stuff out? All you have to do is recreate it in anime form. It's not like you're having to retell the story, remake the story, do anything. It's just, okay, this is what happens. We got to animate it. Why are you cutting stuff? I would love that answer. You know, it's one of those things where you could look at it and go that you have to cut stuff for time or what have you. But for a series that isn't like insanely long, like Fire Force, you know, what's the big deal with having a 4th season? You know what I mean? Things like Shield Hero are going into season 5, and I think we all know how me and Age feel about that. If you want to see our Shield Hero stuff, it's just the 4th season. In short, why did that 4th season happen in that order? It made 0 sense. But we'll talk about that more in our year-end review that's coming out. But for anime, I'm never gonna understand why stuff is cut. For censorship and certain things in certain countries, okay, fine, sure. That kind of thing has to happen. But for just the story stuff, like in Overlord, completely removing Negretto from the story, insane. Some of the other things that have been like left out of like more recent anime, you look at it and go, why was that removed? This doesn't make sense. It was just like another character, another event that was kind of cool. Why didn't we do it? It would have been a neat episode, that kind of thing. So, in short, TLDR is hopefully they get through everything that they need to, and assuming they probably do have to cut stuff, hopefully it's not a big deal, but it probably will be, because it's a lot of stuff to cover in even 13 episodes. You probably needed another 24. You know what I mean? So either way, that's all I'm going to say about that. So we'll just have to see what happens. Again, hope for the best, because this is a very solid show and we've enjoyed it, obviously. But leaving stuff out is just like the cardinal sin to me. It should be, really, honestly, from an objective standpoint, for anybody who watches anything that has like a source material and isn't just like, you know, an original show. Like, imagine if they left a bunch of stuff out of Game of Thrones. How would fans like that, you know, like feel about that? You know what I mean? I don't know if they left anything out of Game of Thrones. I've never watched the show. I don't know anything about it. I'm just saying, like, imagine that kind of thing. You know what I mean? For people who don't watch anime, if you're like into live action stuff that has like a source material, you know, like if they left stuff out of The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings or whatever, you know what I mean? You look at it and go, that's dumb. Why would you do that? You have the book by Tolkien, or you have the book by Martin, whatever it is. So
apparently, like the last season or two of Game of Thrones, before they ended it, they did just kind of do whatever the hell they wanted with it, and people hated it.
Yeah, which to me, I don't get it. I really don't. All you have to do is color in the lines, like the coloring book that you got when you were a little kid. You know what I mean? You have the blueprint, just do it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel over here. You just have to, oh, this is what we have to do. There you go. You know what I mean? It's crazy to me. But the world's full of crazy, random madness these days, so I got nothing for that. But either way, all that stuff aside, for the rest of the episode, seeing Shinra lose his mind over him dyeing his hair and stuff like that, I mean, yeah, we all know what kind of character Shinra is, and he reiterated it in this episode and that kind of thing. All the stuff with the potential doppelganger stuff, with him being able to be taken over, as opposed to, you know, like the stuff we saw with Burns, like the stuff that we saw with the former captain of the Asakusa squad. I forget what number they are. I think they're 7. But it's usually, from when we've seen a doppelganger, it's that being from Adola showing up to literally, like in this case, like kill Burns and take his place, and the Crunchyroll player showing up and killing me and taking my place. And that was Gohan again, just in case anybody. Gohan again.
Well, so the thing is, yeah, the thing is, we don't really have examples of doppelgangers still. Like, we've seen doppelgangers, but like the closest thing we've had to like a case of a doppelganger actually like transitioning over and becoming part of this world is Dragon.
Yeah.
Who's presumably a doppelganger who's successfully like usurped the place of his original. But like all the other doppelgangers that we know of have been fought off except for Burns. And Burns' doppelganger just went right back to Adola after killing him.
Yeah.
Like we saw it in this episode. It's still just chilling there in Adola.
Yeah, it's just hanging out. In case anybody was wondering, the guy, the being in Adola was Burns' doppelganger, just more, taken over as him now. So
yeah, we saw two doppelgangers. We saw Burns' doppelganger and frickin' Asakusa's former boss.
Yeah.
Before Benimaru.
Right. So it's one of those situations where you look at it and go, okay, so if in Shinra's case that was his doppelganger and his mind was gone for those 3 months in seeing the visions of the past and all the stuff that he experienced, then the whole thing that we kind of talked about with Iris, she is potentially Amaterasu's doppelganger.
Yeah, I briefly was talking about this while we were in between recordings, but yeah, like the whole thing we're setting up here potentially as a possible thing is the idea that a doppelganger only needs to, kill you and to usurp your place if you're there. If you're not there, if your mind is absent, they can just jump into your body and don't need to kill you then.
Yep. So
that's what this whole Shinra thing is kind of indicating. Which, from what we know, for Amaterasu, it could just very well be just her soul in the reactor.
Yep.
And Iris could be her body, just with her doppelganger in possession of it.
Right.
And Iris just isn't aware of the fact that she is a doppelganger because, once again, she is an orphan experiment.
Yeah.
Because we know that their whole freaking upbringing was just a giant lab experiment by the White Clad.
Right. And the, head sister, we all know what the deal is with her now, so she would probably be aware of it and potentially, banked on that fact. So. Well,
yeah, the whole point of that, the lab experiment there was trying to artificially induce a doppelganger.
Yep.
That was the whole thing with that's how they were the ones that made the bugs and stuff like that.
Right. So potentially Iris was a success and they just never really talked about it. You know what I mean? And somehow Hibana missed it or something. You know what I mean? So maybe she was the first success and they just kind of let her integrate and be part of the collective and just to see what would happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they never told any of the other kids for anything. They didn't give them any of the information. Hibana only just recently found out about it. That it was one whole big experiment and stuff like that. And the fact that Sumire was even still alive, she assumed Sumire was dead along with everyone else.
Right. So either way, a lot of heavy topics in this one. That kind of thing, what happened with Shinra while he was out. I can't believe they're paying Leaked. That's crazy to me. I can't believe they would do something so crazy as to pay this man. But I'm sure all of you saw it. But yeah, right here, this wasn't Leaked moving in Plank Time, but he was doing something that not capable of doing. He you know what happened here? This was reverse Team Rocket.
Yeah, no, he literally orbital striked Shinra.
Yep.
he full on fucking Helldiver potted him.
Pretty much. So that kind of hilarity I appreciate because obviously that's not something he can actually do. This was for comedic effect. So before Death Battle says that this guy can do this and whatever, just understand there's a difference between comedic effect and actual character ability. I know we rag on Death Battle a lot, but man, did they get a lot of stuff wrong in the last couple years. Can't help it. But either way, just the whole sequence with it is kind of interesting to think during this whole thing with Shinra being given tattoos by Vulcan and all that stuff, and you would think at a certain point, as weird and ridiculous as Arthur is, just with all the stuff going on with the doppelgangers, and obviously it's being written this way for a specific reason, but I'm just kind of talking about from like a fairly realistic standpoint, is like, if you are living in their world and you are like part of, you know, Company 8, and like, you know, everything's going on with Shinra, what's going on with the doppelgangers, and then just one day Shinra goes from who he is to what he became, wouldn't you instantaneously be suspicious of the doppelganger effect and then immediately tie him to the bed like they did, instead of just letting him dye his hair and get tattoos and be a general asshole for 3 months? You know what I mean? Just that hard shift of just, you wake up the next day and all of a sudden he's a gigantic asshole. Wouldn't you eyebrow raise at that? Not just like kind of like gradually becoming a total asshole. You just become a total douche overnight, and Arthur's just like, yeah, that's not him. Wouldn't you take his word for it at that point?
It's not even overnight or anything. It's literally in the middle of the battle of the first pillar.
Yeah.
It's just freaking, he goes and he freaking connects with Inca. They have their Adola link. And then just suddenly, Inca, it's whatever's happened to her, was happened to her. We have no idea. And just suddenly, he is a totally different person.
Right. So, to me, if I were in that situation, be like, hey, Captain, maybe we should tie him to the bed until he starts, you know, acting like Shinra again. Like, immediately. Not, like, wait months to just let it keep happening. And then it escalated to the point where they didn't do anything about it until he hit Iris, which was literally yesterday in universe.
Yesterday.
So, you know, that's just me though. But that's just like kind of one of those like meta questions that you kind of have to ask yourself. Like, I understand why they did it for the writing to like do the doppelganger stuff and whatnot, but from like that character standpoint of just really nobody just eyebrow raised and was just like, what the hell is wrong with Shinra? Like, he wouldn't just like hard shift like this. There has to be some weird crazy Adola shenanigan going on, right? You know, not even leaked, nobody. It's like, yeah, no, he's just going through a rebellious phase. It's just like, yeah, but everything we know of Shinra, the odds of that ever really happening for real are like almost a negative number, especially for the people that know him. And especially with Arthur having his weird sixth sense, just immediately comes to him, oh, hey, you're back. Why didn't we listen to this man? I know he's ridiculous, but it's already been proven on multiple occasions that he has this weird sixth sense for crap like that. So if you're not a crazy Nostradamus-esque predictor, if you keep getting stuff right, you know what I mean? At a certain point, they're going to have to take your word for it. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of interesting that it took that long for them to realize something was wrong. So that is what it is. But either way, he had his heart-to-heart with Arthur. That was kind of interesting. You know, he talked about like the real world and that kind of thing. And the other major part of this episode was them discussing the fact
him trying to explain to trying somehow to figure out a way to explain to Arthur that that prior to the cataclysm the world wasn't anime.
Right, yeah. That'd be a really hard thing to explain. You know what I mean? And that's definitely a pretty interesting take on it, the way they did it. So that's pretty an interesting fun way to handle it. But either way, this is something that we did talk about before too, was when Dragon did attack, Iris did something about it subconsciously. So we figured that she was the final pillar based on what was going on. So now that she said that this is the only thing she's capable of doing. Yes, she's third generation based on this because she's creating her own fire. However, she might be like Benimaru based on what she did to the dragon attack. She might be a second and third gen. So this might be the only fire that she can create. But as a second gen, she might be one of the strongest second gens, period, based on what she did to Dragon's attack. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which, if assuming she is Amaterasu's doppelganger, Amaterasu is supposed to be like the freaking strongest flame wielder in existence. That's the whole reason why she's the power source of the freaking engine.
Right.
So it could be either a thing of she is ridiculously fucking powerful, she's just never bothered trying and has no clue how to do it, or the reason why she seems so weak the whole time is because all of her power is being siphoned into the reactor.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see if they go more into that, maybe because of how they talked about as the pillars are appearing and bringing the world closer to overlapping and just becoming one with Adola, is now she's able to do stuff because all of her power isn't being siphoned to the reactor, let's say. Now she's able to do just a little bit. You know what I mean? So that's the theory as it stands right now. So the other major thing that came out of this is that, as they were saying, was everybody's powers are growing as they get closer to Adola, which would track. The closer you get to your home field, the more you're probably going to become more powerful. You know what I mean? It's kind of like Superman and the sun. You know what I mean? So, very interesting. I just hope they have enough time to get everything in that they need to. So, got anything else?
Yeah, we already know all the fire powers come from Adola, so yeah, just everyone getting stronger. They did specifically mention that it's only second and third gens, but you'd think the Infernals would be getting stronger too. But yeah, they only mentioned second and third gens, not first gens, which are the Infernals.
Yep. The only thing they really said about that was that more people are combusting on.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's more Infernals, but they didn't say anything about the Infernals getting stronger when you'd think they would.
Right. So, either way, again, reasonable enough episode for what it was and what it needed to do. It did everything that it needed to, but again, if we're on a time crunch, not a good start for that side of it. You know what I mean? Just knowing the meta knowledge that we know. So once again, we'll check it out like when we get like halfway through the season and see like where they're at and what they potentially skipped and that kind of thing. So we'll set that up for 6 weeks. But regardless of that, this was still a solid episode for what it needed to be. I'm very interested to see what happened with Inca. You know what I mean? What's going on with the White Clad, that kind of thing in the 3 months. What we saw in the new OP there, the stuff going on with the other members of the White Clad and whatnot. So, I will also be interested to see when the Soul Eater moon shows up. For real. So.
Yeah, they didn't really do anything that seemed like it would potentially be majorly spoilery in the OP. The only things that really came off as like spoilery was, I know for a fact that thing they showed at the very end there is like basically Shinra's like final form that he takes in like the final big battle.
Right.
And then there was that brief bit of how Maya going like full Kishin momentarily there.
Yep. So it'll be interesting to see the actual like gap bridges to the Soul Eater storyline and stuff like that going forward as well. So yeah, lots of cool stuff to get to, I'm sure. And again, hopefully, if stuff is left out, which is a negative, just period, hopefully it's not super major. So we shall see. So anyway, it's good to be back with Fire Force. Hopefully, the madness doesn't occur again. But once again, now with us doing the timer reactions and stuff like that, hopefully that doesn't really occur. But I've already been through that process. So if that same company comes after me, I'll just beat them again. So it's really not that big of a deal. So if you want to hear that whole story, it'll be in our year-end review stuff. That'll be so. I know I promised people I would talk about that, but the end of last year, after I got my channel back and we transitioned to this channel and Patreon and stuff like that, it was just so much going on that I just didn't have time. With all the stuff that was going on with real life for me too, was just didn't have time to like tell that full story in its entirety. So I'll do that in the episode that we got coming up here. So either way, ladies and gentlemen, people of YouTube, French Hero Player has told me to F off, so that's what we're gonna do. And we'll enjoy this nice shot of Iris with the sunflower. So, good to be back with Fire Force. This was Season 3, Episode 13. Yeah, we'll just hope for the best. That's all we can do. So, have a good morning, evening, afternoon, whatever it is for you. Have a good one. See you next time.
Hey everyone, Victoria here. If you enjoyed the video, please consider pushing those like and subscribe buttons. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thanks again for your time, and we hope to see you again in the future.